And hello again, boys and girls. Welcome back to the channel. It's your host, Marley Startled, and today we're going to play some Hoi 4, but I'll just be demonstrating some of the things you can do with the spy system and some of the abuses you can get up to. I know one of my viewers have asked for a Portugal playthrough. I will be doing this shortly after. Trying to do communist and sort of unite South America using the spy system. But today, as a sort of a throwback, we're going to be just discussing the spy system and certain things you can do to abuse the gameplay with it. I'd like to thank you all for subscribing. Thank you very much. When I started making a channel, it was just something to do in my free time after work, because of course I spend a lot of time playing video games, perhaps an excessive amount. And so I thought, what could I do that's constructive while also part of the hobby? And so I started doing the streaming and started doing the channels, and I'm glad that some of you guys like the stuff I put out. I know I play a lot of varied games. I know it's a bit low effort, but it's the nature of the beast when you're back from work and you don't really want to do anything too strenuous. I don't really want to turn this into a secondary job because my work's already quite stressful. So when I came out and started making this, I just wanted to do something casual, something just a place where you could discuss video games, talk about video games, and see if you liked some of the games that are coming out. And I thought the best way of doing that was just being open, showing the gameplay, warts and all, including me fumbling around and screwing up in low quality graphical glitches and so on, for you guys to have an opinion on it and then make a purchase. Because you have a lot of guys who just do reviews, lots of editing, you don't really get a clear picture on the gameplay, whereas I think you get more about understanding from the gameplay loop and so on if you have the full thing, the full picture. That being said, I do some basic editing for different themed videos, but I'm glad you guys like it. I know in today's world people go for the more flashy, quicker sort of stuff, which is good. They can't complain. I enjoy it myself, and I've got 10 minutes to spare. I'll binge watch a few videos, but I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. Sadly, no big reveal. No no cam reveal, no OnlyFans pictures, but hey, maybe in time, I'll be able to sell my bath water for copious amounts of money. But thank you all for enjoying the content, and I hope that in future when more games come out, we will hopefully be able to sort of do more in terms of playing with each other and so on. I do avoid Discord and doing multiplayer games for obvious reasons, but hopefully in time, perhaps if you just run into me online one day, you can have a good casual playthrough. In any case, this is going to be the Spies abuse video. So this came out, the Spy system came out in La Resistance, often overlooked and underutilized. It has some very powerful things you can do in the spy system, and this heavily edited video will show the things you can do and the impacts this have on the gameplay later on. So this is going to be what you call it waveform editing, where I only show you the highlights or the best bits and the more important parts. I'm not going to show you the full picture. So the reason I'm picking USA is because it's got a lot of free civs. You can also do this in the UK as well, or any really allied nation. And actually it's better if you do it collectively, because the more spies, the greater the damage. So I've already built my civ counts, I've already done my focuses, but really it's not going to be an optimized game, it's just going to be a bit of abuse. But before I go into further detail, let's actually get our spies opened up. So the spy system is pretty obvious. It costs 5 civs. It's pretty expensive, but so therefore minor nations tend to shy away from it. But it has got some wonderful utility, some very powerful things you can do with the spy system, especially in multiplayer games. And that's why a lot of the things you can do are banned. But I'll show you some of the things that aren't banned, especially in meme games. So we've just got our spy system. We're waiting for our spies. Generally speaking, if you're not the spy master, you can probably get about 3 spies out. 2 from doing the different intelligence and operations and getting enough of these upgrades, and another one from a politician after a certain bit of world tension. Generally speaking, you need about 2 to have really enough impact. Right, your 1 that really builds a spy network. So the top ones that allow you to get more intel. So intelligence is pretty obvious, it gives you more intelligence. So if you have research economy civilian, this will give you more intelligence on a nation's economy. When you put a spy in there, it will give you information such as what they're building, their civ counts, civ losses, and so on. Then, of course, you have the army department, which will show you the size of the armies, their divisional compositions, and with enough tech, I believe it will also show you troop movement and so on. Generally, this is again overlooked because spies are mostly used to mid to late game for collaboration governments and getting rid of resistance. Naval department again a very underlooked intelligence, especially as Germany, because again, most of Germany's spies are used in collaboration governments and resistance warfare. But this will give you, with enough intelligence, the ability to find out what ships the enemy nations are building, as well as their convoy routes, which is extremely important. Or is it civilian economy? I can't remember, but it's either one or the other. But I believe it's Naval Department, but I could be wrong. It's been a while. So if you're being a convoy raider, a dirty little convoy raider, if you're sub-spam, or if you're saying you're trying to cut off the German supply of rubber or oil, and you want to work out where their convoys are going, then you click on this bad boy and then you can find out where the convoys are. And pretty much the same with Air Force. So these are very powerful boons, but are generally overlooked. And of course, you've got your passive defense. This is a normal one people tend to go for. Your counterintelligence. This is mostly for stopping spies. So spies tend to lose their game impact as the game goes on. People start joining factions, and consequence it becomes more for collaborations and resistance. So this is a very powerful one to just catch spies in the act. And of course, you have your anti-partisans, pretty important one, especially as Germany trying to reduce the partisans. Another safe go-to. Blueprint stealing. There was a time where the attempted meta was stealing fighter twos from the Allied minor or Romania, but it was just too risky, and if you failed, you were going to lose the game. So blueprint stealing has sort of gone to the wayside because it was too unpredictable. You couldn't pick what tank blueprint you stole, so you could end up researching to steal a Panzer I, which is not very good. Invisible ink, of course, gives you better infiltration aspects, and plastic explosives give you ability to sabotage. Now, sabotage is again something that's not very often used. People just use strategic bombing. I again don't really use it. Suicide deploys are pretty effective because you can use this to potentially get rid of your spy if they're captured, instead of doing a recovery operation. And then of course we go down to the lower ones. So localized training centers gives you a potential to recruit from within that nation, which is quite powerful. Reduces your chance of your spies getting captured. Commando training gives them a commando trait. Interrogation techniques easier to capture. Diplomatic training, quite a powerful one for controlling trade routes and also good for diplomatic pressure. And most importantly, I believe it is psychological warfare, which can be used to reduce stability. I believe that is the case. Yes, I believe this is reducing stability. So we'll click this bad boy, and that's quite an important mechanic. Then, of course, the cryptology, a very powerful one at the bottom again. Again, something that's very often overlooked. Cryptology will give you a massive bonus if you just break the enemy's crypto, giving you massive bonuses to combat and air and all sorts of things. Again, something that's very often overlooked, or people research it but never actually use it because they forget. But this first demonstration will be abusing psychological warfare and abusing stability. So what we need to do is wait. So we just have to sit down and we got to wait until we get our 2 spies. And so we'll be looking at this for a large part of the game. So we got our spies, so we take a look. So we've got stage Q costs, stage Q risk, we have got control trade and diplomatic pressure, and we've got demolition exports. So this guy has got boost ideology, which is quite a powerful one. But again, you can't really do coups in multiplayer games, so I wouldn't really bother. But still, it may have that extra bonus to boosting ideology, so we'll take this bad boy anyway. So what do you want to do with your spies? So the first abuse, or the first demonstration, will be the stab penalty. So one of the boons you can do with spies. It's reducing stability within a nation targeted. For that, you need 2 spies, but over time, this will reduce the nation's stability. Now, generally, this is again overlooked because eventually, when everyone joins joins factions, they'll be able to share the spies, and then of course, people eventually realize what you're doing, and then they spy dump on counterintelligence in the nation being targeted, and then it sort of becomes less effective. But until they catch that, or until they've built enough spies to counter it or done the right tech, they're completely at your mercy. It may take them a while to realize why their stability is getting so badly smashed. So what you can do with this is you can, of course, heavily damage Italy, not so much Germany, and you can really undermine Romania. Romania's got very low industry, so it's unlikely that a Romania player will go into spy networks, and it won't be able to join the Axis for a considerable long time. So you just dump a little guy on Romania, build that spy network, and then you wait. So what you can end up doing is, of course, once they get that stability to hit, their economy will collapse once they go to war, which means that if their economy collapses, then of course when it gets to late war, they will be pretty useless. I know what people were saying, well, this is not very productive as Germany, you want to be forming collaboration, and you're right, Germany doesn't really have that boon, but as the allies with your massive spy network, it's often underutilized, and there's not much you can do with your spy networks early on, so you might as well just chill out and wait until you have sort of critical mass. So you need to really use it in conjunction with your allies. So you say to the Germany player, you say to the UK, France, build some spies. Oh, you got 2 spies, I've got 2 spies, France has got 2 spies. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to stab hit Romania. And then you just dump all your spies into Romania, get your 2 spies, get your second spy on propaganda, and watch the whole thing implode as their stability slowly rots away into nothing. So the next thing we will do is economy civilian, I suspect. Why don't let's do suicide pills to prevent the Romanians from potentially undermining us too much and capturing us, because it is a bit RNG this. So of course you've got these different things like infiltrate civilian administration, infiltrate army, infiltrate navy, and so on, which will give you extra intel. These are good things to have if you are going for, say, if you are going to go for sort of intel gathering, but not so good if you're more for collaborations and so on. Another point I would make is that it's very easy to forget to use the spies, so bear that in mind. So of course you've got orchestrate coup, that's the potential, but again, most multiplayer games that will be banned. And coups are good in single player. They just take a long time to fire, and sometimes you just think, what's the point? I can just invade instead. Of course, there's no guarantee that your coup will work either, so you got to bear that in mind. You could eventually get the good news, so to speak. And you can see RNG, we've already lost one of our spies. Not the end of the world, but we put our spies down. We're putting down propaganda. We need to wait until... Well, now we need to go and save our spy because they were immediately captured. So it is a bit RNG, but it is what it is. You just got to roll with the punches sometimes. There we go. Now we have freed our fellow. And we can once again do propaganda. Now I believe propaganda gets more effective the higher intel network, so bear that in mind. So what we'll do now is to stop you going insane watching this. I'm going to now edit this. Effectively, this is really the plan. All you're doing is putting one guy down for the intel network, one guy to reduce stability, and then, of course, once you get your third guy, putting another guy down to reduce stability. Then, of course, you're telling all your allies, you want to get some spies, you want to join the gang, and have all your spies as dumped on this poor little nation, poor little Romania. Italy's also a pretty vulnerable boy because they don't join the Axis for a while, and you just sit and you wait until 1939, 1940. So this is going to be a big edit now. We're going to go forward in time, and I will then show off more of the damage. Okay, Boys and girls, welcome back to the edit. So the war has begun. We're going to count this as the beginning of World War II. Of course, there will be some slight variations. Romania probably would have joined the Axis by now, but it's time to now show off what damage our only 2 spies did. As you can tell, one of my spies did die, but fortunately, because of the research, I was able to quickly replace them, and I've just been doing stability hitting the entire time, 100% efficiency. Let us take a look at the damage. As you can tell, 42% stability. They are not cut out for war in the slightest. The second they go to war, Romania will have half of the stability halved, and their war support is at 54%. Now, 54% is still pretty high because of war propaganda against the German Reich and so on. But remember, this is just 2 spies. If you have all the Allies dumping spies, even the British is dumping spies in Romania, this is going to go a lot lower. So with 42% stability, they're immediately going to have draft riots and civilian riots as soon as they join the war. They're effectively not effective anymore, just with 2 spies. So if I tag Romania, let's take a look at the damage. Let's see if they've got any issues. Nope. So let's take a look at what penalties this gives us. So political power -2%, factory output -7%, and dockyard output -7%. Resistance to target occupied territories 11%. Because that's such low stability, they simply will not be able to militarize as much as they would like to. And with everyone doing the same thing, you're going to end up in a pretty rough situation as Romania. Equally, some of the political decisions you can make require you to get a certain level of war support. So to get war economy, you need 50% war support. And of course, he's only at 54%. With everyone doing the same thing, ganging up on poor Romania, you're going to end up in a situation where, well, you are simply not combat effective. So, see if I can join the Axis yet. I cannot because I need a popularity greater than 9%. I wonder if there's a focus I can go down to see if I can join the Axis. Now, no, I can't. No, and no. Which is a pain, but hey, it is what it is. So join the Axis. So we can go 70 days and see how this ends if we want. Stability is going up as Romania because of course the AI has taken back over and the AI is taking spies back out. Or the USA is taking spies back out because of the party popularity. But the damage at this stage has already been done. It doesn't even matter if it's at 51%. As soon as he goes to war, that's going to go down to 20%. 50% stability for war is not in the slightest useful, which is amusing, really, if you think about it. Fortunately, I don't think you can change ideology in most multiplayer games, but it's just a point to note that if you had lots of your allies stacking on this with the spy network, this wouldn't matter in the slightest. Of course, the AI has been doing things like improved workers' conditions to try and stop the spies, but it's not been enough, and this is just completely valueless now. So, now we join the war and see what happens to my nation. 25% stability immediately. We have got -24% factory output, political gain -9%, dockyard output -24%, resistance 14%. It's not looking good. And they're going to start getting hit by a lot of events. The events haven't popped yet. I'm not going to bother with showing you the events, but effectively you're going to get 2 draft riots, which would mean you kind of spend a massive amount of PP and do a lot of civ damage to your industry trying to fix it, or you're going to get factory riots as well. You can see here that the stability is going back up, but again, with spy spam, it doesn't really matter, and because of that stab hit, it still doesn't really matter. It's still done enough damage to make it almost unplayable as Romania. But that's just one of the things you can do. We're now going to do the same thing as the UK on Italy to show you what happens if you do it to Italy, but we're going to do it as England or the United Kingdom to show you what it's like with more spies. I'm going to do the same as against Germany, just to show you the different varying amounts of success you can have. Okay, boys and girls, it's now 1939. This time doing the same thing, but against Italy. Primarily This is where we had some more issues because once we had a lot more spies getting captured and it became a bit of a civ sink. But as you can see with the UK, you get a lot of free spies as the spy master, eventually getting more and more as more people join the war. Here we have, of course, the Italians, who are at 56%, which is still pretty high. I don't think I could get it any lower, unfortunately. But I don't think they have joined the war yet, so we'll see if that works in our favour or not. Now they've joined, so let's tag Italy and see the damage it has done. So I think the big limiting factor with Italy is because they've actually got an industry, they actually can invest in more spies and anti-spy warfare. So as you can see, they've got currently 26% stability, giving them -9% political power, factory output 23, -23, -23, and -14% resistance in occupied territories, or +14%. I couldn't get it any lower after that -20 base, which is a bit of a pain, but hey ho, it is what it is. However, it's still a lot of damage. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the war support any lower as well, but it still did its job enough to sort of slow down the war effort, and hopefully with more spies stacking from the other allied powers, you'll of course have more damage done. But still, 26% stability is not to be sniffed at. That's going to do a lot of damage, and once again you're going to end up with riots and draft issues. And if you look at our PP, the political power change has gone down significantly. Again, really, this in itself is not going to win the game. It's just going to troll, if I'm honest. What will probably happen is Italy will rush to join the Axis or rush to join Germany. Then Germany will throw his spies in to do counterintelligence in Italy, and you're going to lose. But what this will do is increase the tension once Italy joins the faction. And again, you've got to play that sort of civ war between the two nations. Still, with just one nation, the United Kingdom, it's really a case of how much civs you want to invest. So you can, are you willing to invest 5 civs every month to get enough spies? Are you willing to invest 50 PP to become the spy master? And are you willing to invest civs in rescuing your spies? If you are, then of course you can do a lot of damage very quickly and just ruin your allies or ruin your enemies. The reason why this doesn't work fully is because of course you need to boost ideology. Once the spies move on, the ability will begin to increase because of ruling party popularity, but at this stage the damage is already done, and you're going to have a very nerfed Italy with that sort of factor in dockyard reduction, which I think is enough to do the damage you want to do. So without further ado, we're now going to move on to doing the same to Germany, and then we will go from there. As a point, we are going to use our recruitment centres, our local recruitment agency, to recruit spies in Germany, because doing that saves us an awful lot of pain as the Germans, as the spy handler, because this reduces the chances of our spies getting captured, which is extremely useful to us. So a point I would make just here, boys and girls, I'm continuing on the spy spam. So some observations: after you get to say below -20, you can't reduce the stability anymore by looks of things. However, I was able to keep the German war support below 50 until now, until basically Onschloss, which means that they have not been able to go to war economy this entire time, which is very amusing. It seems like quite a powerful thing. It means that Germany who's not paying attention will not be able to go to war economy unless they do Onschloss or they do some real gamey things like to increase war support, which is very amusing. I would admit it was quite an amusing affair just watching Germany. I mean, it's March 1938 and they were unable to get to war economy, which is pretty funny, if I'm honest with you. But yeah, you can see it's not having the same effect as on other nations, but still pretty good, all things considered. It's not going to get to the point where they're going to have riots and so on, but it's going to be pretty potent regardless, in my personal opinion, if you just take a look at the war support and so on, it's not too shabby. Now I'm going to have to build some units simply because I'm going to move on to the next part of the game, or the next part of the plan after this. They've finally gone to war economy now, boys. Took them a while, but they finally got there. Okay, boys, it is now time for war. I am now back. So we've had a mixed result with Germany. So the good things about Germany is that if Germany's not paying attention, you can just ruin his ability to go to war economy. So what I found is I kept war support below 50% during the war in Spain, during Japan, and so on. Potentially could have got it up for a bit more of attaches, which would have perhaps improved their ability to get their war support up. But as you can tell, it wasn't enough. Equally, I didn't get the war support low enough to get it to like about that 50 or 40, 50% mark, but it's done enough damage to get it below 45. Bear in mind that an AI, that a player, Germany would of course immediately begin investing in spy networks, but if you capture Germany unaware or he's not paying attention, then you can do a lot of damage. But a good thing to note is that foreign propaganda is capped at -20, but still you want to keep the guys on it, or the guys and girls spies on it, just to keep it low enough. Because this is just going to be a nuisance for him the entire time, especially as the war goes on, and he's just going to have Germany will have massive issues trying to mobilize fully. As you can tell, it's probably not as big as Germany as you normally expect, but it's a pretty rough time for the poor old Germans. I will be honest with you. But next we'll move on to our next thing to do. But generally speaking, lowering stability is disgusting. You stack enough players on it, and you can just prevent or do some serious damage to miners. Like Romania, Romania may as well just not play if you're going to do that. And you also really slow down the German war economy. I mean, your inability to go to war economy because of the spies was just funny, but that's just a point to make. Now we're going to see what we can do with doing resistance. So we'll do resistance in Germany now, and then we will go on to see what other damage we can do. So resistance is quite good because it causes a manpower drain. This manpower drain is extremely important because when it goes to later war, when they're having when the Germany's sort of losing to attrition in the east, it can do a serious amount of damage. Now the thing with Japan, I believe Japan gets a bonus event that means that resistance isn't that much of an issue for the Japanese, but we'll give that a go as well to show you what resistance can do, which is another one of the more powerful tools you can use as a spy network. So we'll just deploy our spies. When they're ready, we'll send them off, and I will get back to you in 1941 to see how bad it's got for the poor old Germans. So another point you can do, this is to really show off how you can really double up the resistance. You can also send weapons to the exile forces and do training exercise to get your own experience up, and also to just increase resistance growth in, say, Poland. So if we do this bad boy, hopefully over time we're going to do some serious damage to the German war effort, but we will see. Okay, boys, welcome back. This has been rather boring. So what I've done is I've just done very little in terms of any sort of macro. I've just sort of been lounging around waiting while I've been doing my spies. So I've had 2 spies in Romania because I was saturated in Germany, just hanging around. So if we take a look at Romania, yeah. Then I've had spies in Germany. So I've had 1 spy collecting intel, 1 spy raising propaganda. Here you can see they've still got around 52% stability, so now they've finally got it above form again. I probably could fix that by putting another spy there if I wanted to. And over here I've had these 2 spies constantly doing strength and resistance. Meantime, I've also been spamming weapons for the Polish resistance, and we will see now what sort of damage this will have done for the German economy. So if we tag the Germans and see what the damage is, and we will go from there. So if we take a look at the resistance, we've got resistance at 75% here, which of course, as you can tell, is probably going to do a lot of damage for their industry and their economy. We can't do strategic redeployment now anymore. They've got massive damage to garrisons, garrison penetration. It is not looking good for the poor old Germans stuck in France. So this is going to be good in terms of the long term. So this is going to cause attrition to the Germans, which over time will stack up and cause them to take a large attrition when they eventually do Barbarossa, so they're not going to be able to replace their equipment. Also got some resistance going on in the Netherlands, which isn't too bad, bearing in mind that Germany's only have a set number of spies, maybe 4 or 5, so already they've spent most of their spies over here trying to stop these uprisings and stop the uprisings and preventing the constant damage to the local industry. Or to their own troops and their own industry. Up north, we've also been doing the same. You can see that again, we've got had some resistance in Norway, doing about 31% damage, and over in Poland, we're getting to around about 63% mark, which is only going to get worse as the war goes on. Now, if we take a look at our actual resources, so they're not taking a lot of damage, or they're still not in a deficit from this. But if we go over and take a look at damage to their industry, not looking good already. They've already got a massive chunk of infrastructure getting damaged, and if I put more spies over here, I suspect we would have a good old-fashioned Warsaw uprising. Now, if we take a look at our occupied territories and take a look at the damage in terms of resistance, you can see that the French are about 51% on their way to causing some big old problems. The Germans have not been able in any sort of way to get up their compliance because of the nature of the resistance going on, and it's only going to get worse again in Poland and so on. But then again, they are on civilian oversight, so let us carry on for another year or two, let the Germans move in, and then we will see if this has come and borne any more fruit. So Barber started, resistance is already high. Now if we continue this on, say 1942, let's see what happens. Okay, boys and girls, it is a year after Barb, around about a year after Barb. So here's the situation. It's just purely doing spy spam. We can see on the map that there is an awful lot of attrition on the Eastern Front, but I'm not quite sure how much damage. So again, all we've been doing is constantly spamming resistance, constantly lowering propaganda when possible. We got one guy captured, but at that stage I was getting a bit bored, and strengthening resistance and constantly giving guns to our exiled forces. So if we tag on over to Germany and see what the damage is like, a whopping 100% resistance in France. I reckon you're going to have an uprising soon in France. Yeah, it's just a complete disaster. It's just like nothing will work here anymore, I don't think. Yeah, you've got general uprisings, and it's just gone horribly wrong. Equally, Norway is getting pretty bad as well, damage to garrisons, and well, you're getting an emboldened resistance, even Poland as well, and that is continuing to grow and spread as the resistance carries on, especially because the weapons resistance is giving that plus 10% growth and resistance spread. So as long as I get one area, it's like a rife hotbed of resistance, it tends to start spreading out rather quickly. Coupled with the growing resistance elsewhere, what's going to happen is the German player is simply going to run out of spies, and it's going to be a bit of a problem. Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a problem. In terms of their supplies and logistics, well, you can probably tell at this stage that things aren't looking very good for Germans. They've still got some guns, but the question is how much of those guns are actually going to fighting the resistance, and it's very difficult to show. So the French are about, well, almost 90% ready to revolt. The Polish are also about 60% to revolt. Because of what we've been doing, No resources are really going to the to the to the French. 12 garrisons are currently being sent. I think that's probably to do more with supply rather than anything else. But the point is, I think they're all on civilian oversight. So if we simulated this being a military oversight, they would need 32 divisions. So it's either a case of, do you just stand by and do a revolt, or do you roll 32 divisions, another 40 divisions, another 9 divisions. Let's keep rolling divisions everywhere and see if that saves you. Let's see how long this lasts before we run out of resources, so to speak. So if we roll garrison log, how much damage we're taking over the past 12 months, we are losing 18k manpower. 30k manpower. 8k manpower. 44k manpower. Yeah. At this stage, the war is more or less over. Because the Germans either do keep civilian oversight and watch France revolt, or they have to go military governorship and stop what is about to happen, which I don't think they're going to do. They've almost lost 100k. I wonder if we change this to brutal oppression, see if that saves them. I don't think it's going to save them. I mean, they don't lose a lot of equipment, but they do lose a lot of manpower very quickly doing this. Yeah, there's not a lot that can be done to save these guys. However, this is not a particularly accurate representation. They've run out of manpower. In the space of seconds, they've run out of manpower, because you can't do that, because you can't change your collaboration government. That's probably why they've kept it on, say, military governor, because they just run out of manpower otherwise. Now, if we take a look with military governor, would that reduce? Yes, it would slowly begin reducing the resistance, but the damage it would do to the equipment still wouldn't be enough to sort of save it, if I'm honest. Like, even if you can't keep on top of all of this without suffering catastrophic losses of equipment. However, it's not accurate. Really, the AI should not have stayed on civilian oversight when this was happening. Otherwise, they could have prevented this, but obviously they didn't. So, as I've known, it is very easy for Germany as a Germany player, to keep control over resistance with just using the correct templates and the correct manpower, and making sure you've got the right making sure you've made collaboration governments and you've got the right right spy priorities. So if you send a spy over to France, you should be able to keep it low. So let's take a look. If I was supposed, oh, they've all been captured. Well, Germany, that's very interesting. But if you'd sent, say, a spy over here, you might be able to reduce the resistance, and then a spy there, and a spy there, and then you've got your last spy, and you might be able to send them over. So you really got to make a choice between east or west. Perhaps the Italians could send their spies up and try and reduce it as well, but again, that's a lot of investment, and it's probably going to be too late in the game. So it's one of those things that if you don't invest in, but the other enemy does invest in, you're going to lose really badly. But you can just see the amount of damage resistance can do if left alone. But you do have to pay attention to it and do some heavy investment, unfortunately, which means that it can be a bit difficult at times to really get the most out of it, and that's why I feel like a lot of players don't bother with the resistance mechanic, especially because they won't be able to get enough intel, because if Germany is actually doing passive defense and they actually are putting proper spies and counterintelligence in, often you'll be failing to really infiltrate, so you have to rely on using homegrown local agents, such as recruiting from here, if you want to put spies in Luxembourg and so on. Still, we're going to now do a final one where we look at Britain putting spies and spy spamming it. Japan, of course, imagine if all the allies were doing that, or the USA was also doing that. 1937, and we'll go from there. But as you can probably tell, resistance to occupation will just devastate your equipment over time and becomes improbable. Of course, there are balancing factors. For example, let's say if this had full collaboration, which most Germany players will bother doing, they would, of course, have less required garrisons and lower resistance. But hey ho, it is what it is. Also, I did note that you can really gimp Germany's ability to go to war economy if again they're not paying attention, because the usual meta of send an attaché to Spain and then go war economy won't work if you're spy spamming as the UK and you've got some ally spy spamming, which is very amusing. But that's just a little observation I found. I think there's an easy way to get around it. You just send a spy to Japan, get it in 1937 or your Anschluss. But if you don't do either of those things, then well, you're in for a bad time. So, final one will be doing or checking UK, checking Japan in terms of resistance, and again, same old rules apply, spamming spies in the UK, and we will look at Japan in 1939 as the British. So, as a point, just for you guys to notice, you can in fact go to the Intel tab, and it's total civilian intel. If you get high enough total civilian intel, you will get the convoy routes, which is rather important. So if you get 70%, you get trade routes on the map. Just bear that in mind. So the war in China has started. I'm just going to check to see. So I've been spamming resistance and propaganda. Propaganda has not been very effective this early on, as you can probably tell. It's only on 60% because of the start of the war. But if we tag Japan and see what that resistance is like, you will hopefully be able to get an eye to see what damage we've sort of inflicted. So if we take a look at the resistance, it's only 17%, not very strong, but we'll wait till 1939 and see where we go from there. So here's an example of getting 100% intel. You can see now that I've got full access to their convoys, so it's very important if you want to do some convoy raiding. It's a very good idea to get some spies out just to do some quiet intel gathering. Just passive intel gathering, you don't have to be very aggressive with it. Just stick some spies up, go to quiet intel, and then you'll be able to spot. So it's very powerful if you say a Germany player, or if you're playing, as you were saying, you want to sort of destroy a convoy route. But anyway, back to 1939, boys. Okay, boys, welcome back. As I say again, so the 6th of August, it's almost time for World War II to start. I'm just going to keep it going a little bit, and then we will see what happens. So let's tag over to, now we've done all our resistance spamming again. This has been a case of the spamming that resistance. I did notice that it was a lot harder to maintain spies in Japan, and of course doing this I wasn't able to reduce stability very low. I don't think it's very possible to reduce stability regardless against Japan because it starts so high anyway, but this is a point you probably won't be able to stab hit Japan very well. Anyway, let's take a look at what Japan is like right now in terms of its resistance. So, well, it's already at 92% in the north of China, and it is also heavily damaged in terms of its garrisons. In terms of its supply, it's still got plenty of equipment. In terms of its occupied territory in China, it's still on civilian oversight. It's only using one division now. If it went to military governor, it would go to 7 divisions. And if we take a look at the damage it would do, it would stack up very quickly. It would stack up really, really quickly as Japan. If you take a look at equipment, I mean 33 equipment but 718 manpower, which will get progressively worse as the battle as the war progresses. Equally, in this early on, I don't think a Japanese player will build or invest a lot in spies, and if you've got a USA doing the same, a France doing the same, it's going to get very bad very quickly. I mean, let's take a look at this. Strategic redeployment is disabled, local supplies minus 50%, divisional attrition plus 30. if they don't get control of this, it's pretty much over for the Japanese. But we will continue on till 1940, and then I will show you what it is like then. And hello again. We are finally finished. This is the last time I'll show you guys what spies can do. So again, all we've been doing is spamming spies on Japan. Let's tag over to Japan and see what damage we have done. So 83% there, not bad. I mean, that's going to be low stability. Oh wait, no. Divisional speed minus 50, redeployment off, local supply minus 50. All these not very useful when the enemy army is on the offensive, but divisional attrition is pretty good. But again, not very useful. So that's only really useful if you want to say a D-Day in France or something. It's not the best tool to have. In terms of damage done to garrisons, let's take a look. Oh, and it crashed on me. The game crashed on me. Let us reload that save, and then we will take a look again. Okay, now let's take a look. So let's take a look at garrisons, occupied laws. So let's go back to military governor. See how many divisions that's going to take. 15 divisions. Yeah, it's not the work, but not the end of the world. But it's going to lower equipment. So there's a point that actually it does sort of strain the equipment a little bit, but it still is reducing the resistance regardless. I suspect it's oh, we have one spy, so if they put a spy down to root out resistance there, that should reduce it, but then again that's not going to stop it spreading elsewhere. So if we take a look once more, occupied territories, casualties, we're talking about 4k casualties just to try and bring it back under control. 4k, 4k, 5k, 5k. Of course, if you went back to civilian oversight, it's going to go down to it's going to go down a bit. I feel it's going to go down a bit. Again, it's more the equipment loss that's a problem, really. But it feels like spies are quite powerful, and you can either decide to ignore the spies as the one being attacked by the spies, and just accept the higher and higher resistance at the cost of saving your divisions, or you clamp down and you go with civilian. You go down with trying to get that compliance up with military governors at the cost of your equipment and that. But as you can see here, the resistance is doing some damage to the supply lines, not enough to really warrant all this investment, but still it's enough to be irritating at the very least. Over time, of course, this would get more and more awful, eventually getting to terminal point. But as you can see, it's not very effective individually as the allies. You probably would need to throw in loads and loads of spies. Like you'd have to throw in at least 2 or 3 nations worth of spies to really sort of make this worth your time. But that's pretty much the same for most of the nations, with the exception being the UK, who can send weapons to the different resistance factions. So what do I think of the spy system? It's a very powerful tools in your arsenal if you really want to sort of disable certain nations such as Romania, Bulgaria and Italy. However, it relies on people not paying attention, and if you really want to get the most out of it, you will need to get your team to sort of contribute to the spy war effort, which is of course going to cost civs. But the benefits of that is that you will really undermine the opposing force. It's a bit like an arms race. Whoever has the most spies will eventually come out on top. And if you don't have more spies than the defending nations, then you're probably not going to achieve a lot. But if you can get your spies out, and for like the USA and the UK, where you can have hundreds of the bloody things, you can do an awful lot of damage. As you saw with Germany, again, it's not the most accurate. Of course, they will make templates and things to that effect. But remember, you're not just having the UK doing resistance, you would also have the USA doing resistance, you'd also have France doing resistance, because you've got nothing else better to do. And so really it would stack up over time. to that sort of terminal point. Equally, Romania is not going to be able to join the Axis until, what, 1939, 1940, so that's him out the count. And of course, Bulgaria and Italy is also going to struggle because of that sort of stab hitting. I know there are rule sets against ideologies, but against ideology lifting, so your stab hits only going to be temporary. In a perfect world, you'll be able to undermine the ideology as well, and that means reducing the overall stability of that nation. However, I think most rule sets ban the use of boosting ideology. Anyway, that hopefully saved you hours and hours of your life just testing this out. So I did it for you. You're welcome. I will move on to the Portugal game next time I play Hoi 4. So if you see a Hoi 4 video after this, you will hopefully see me play Communist Portugal and abusing the spy system. Altogether, I do think the spy system is very powerful, but it's underused, and without a concerted effort from everyone involved in your team, I can see it having a limited value due to the ability of the opposing nations, such as a much more combined Axis force, that's reducing the damage you do via increasing spy resistance and building their own spies. And as you know, the Allies tend to be a rather dysfunctional team, and in consequence they probably won't listen to you if you say, look, we're doing spy spam. But I can see there to be a lot of utility there. I mean, you can do a lot of damage against Japan over time if you do invest in that heavy resistance, potentially really weaken them in 1941 when they eventually do go to war, because they have a lot of their forces tied down with anti-resistance. Bear in mind, you can start putting resistance down over here and really start damaging the supply lines if they try and go for India. Equally, again, Romania is self-explanatory. You can just take them out of the game. Germany, you can delay war economy. Italy, you can also really wind up, and really it's just quite a useful tool. And of course, if you're doing it as the UK, you can expand that resistance and start doing excessive damage over time. However, I feel like it can be ignored for a while. Like the opposing force can ignore your resistance up to a point, and then once they go to military governor to reduce the rebellion risk, then they'll lose. So it's a case of them buying time by ignoring resistance until it gets too much, or they invest massively in their military governors and their anti-resistance, and hopefully stave off the pain of rebellion. So it's a mixed bag, but I can see people getting frustrated, not seeing any damage being done to Germany, and then eventually Germany is collapsing because the resistance got too high. So it's just one of those things. Still, very powerful tool. I highly recommend using it in your own games, especially meme games, or if you're planning for a dealer, just spam it all in France and have some massive fun there. However, I would say to divide it up. Have a couple of strong points, so I would invest a load of spies into here. Once it gets high enough resistance will spread elsewhere, then I'll move elsewhere and go to Norway, then I'll move elsewhere and go to Warsaw, and just keep spreading the resistance around. So the spy network and the Axis team struggles. Equally, if they're overstretched, then of course you can start doing stab hits instead, and so it comes a war. It almost comes a sort of its own war, so to speak, where you're constantly sort of, a bit like the air war, you're constantly micromanaging your spies, and that's probably why not a lot of people do it, but you're having to micromanage your spies. So, okay, they're blocking me there, I'll go stab hit Romania. Okay, they're moving to stop me in Romania, I'll go form resistance in Poland. Okay, they're trying to stop the resistance in Poland, back to Romania, and this is constantly going back and forth. Probably something like a co-op could do, but I would recommend it because it's just funny. It's just funny watching someone's entire nation implode before the war even starts. Anyway, that's me done. We've had a long time. We've had a long time streaming. I'm tired now. I need to upload and edit this. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Adieu.